The couple were 85 years old and had been married for 60 years. Though they were far from rich, they managed to get by because they watched their pennies. Though not young, they were both in very good health, largely due to the wife's insistence on healthy foods and exercise for the last 3 decades. One day, their good health didn't help when they went on a rare vacation and their plane crashed, sending them off to heaven. They reached the pearly gates, and St. Peter duly escorted them inside. He took them to a beautiful mansion, furnished in gold and fine silks, with a fully stocked kitchen and bar and a waterfall in the master bath. A maid could be seen hanging their favorite clothes in the closet. They gasped in astonishment when he said, "Welcome to heaven. This will be your home now." The old man asked Peter how much all this was going to cost. "Why, nothing," Peter replied. "Remember, this is your reward in heaven." The old man looked out the window, and right there he saw a championship golf course, finer and more beautiful than any ever built on earth. "What are the green's fees?" grumbled the old man. "This is heaven," St. Peter replied. "You can play for free every day." Next they went to the clubhouse and saw the lavish buffet lunch, with every imaginable cuisine laid out before them, from seafood to steaks to exotic salads and desserts and free-flowing beverages. "Don't even ask," said St. Peter to the man. "This is heaven. It is all free for you to enjoy." The old man looked around and glanced nervously at his wife. "Well, where are the low-fat and low-cholesterol foods and the diet colas and decaffeinated tea and coffee?" he asked. "That's the best part," St. Peter replied. "You can eat and drink as much as you like of whatever you like, and you will never get fat or sick. This is heaven." The old man pushed. "No gym to work out at?" "Not unless you want to," was the answer. "No testing my sugar or blood pressure or never again. All you do here is enjoy yourself." The old man glared at his wife and said, "You and your stupid bran muffins, we could have been here 30 years ago." There once were 2 Irishmen, named Sean and Pat, who were the best of friends. During one particular night of revelry, the 2 agreed that when one passed on, the other would take and spill the contents of a bottle of fine Irish whiskey over the grave of the fondly missed and recently dead friend. And as fate would have it, Sean would be the first to pass. Pat, hearing of his friend's illness, came to visit his dear friend one last time. "Sean," said Pat, "can you hear me?" Faintly, Sean replied. "Yes, Patty, I can." Bashfully, Pat started. "Do you remember our pact, Sean?" "Yes, I do, Patty." Sean strained. "And you'll also remember that I was to pour the contents of a fine old bottle of whiskey over your grave, which we have been saving for going on 30 years now?" said Pat. "Yes, Patty, I do," whispered Sean. "It's a very old bottle now, you know," urged Pat. "And what are you getting at, Pat?" asked Sean briskly. "Well, Sean, when I poured the whiskey over your grave, would you mind if I filtered it through my kidneys first?" An American, an Englishman, and a Frenchman are walking along the beach when they come across a magic lamp. The American picks it up and rubs it, and out comes the genie. The genie eye looks them over and says, "Since there are 3 of you, you will get 1 wish each." The American thinks for a moment and says, "My grandfather was a farmer, my father was a farmer, I'm a farmer, and my son will be a farmer. I want America to be the most fertile agricultural nation on earth." Poof, it is done. The Frenchman is impressed with the wish, thinks about it for a moment, and says, My country has been invaded many times. I want France to be surrounded by a wall to protect it from all enemies. Poof. It is done. Englishman, it is time for your wish. Before I give my wish, the Englishman says, tell me about this French wall. It is 100 feet high and 50 feet thick, the genie replies. Nothing can go in or out through it. Wonderful. For my wish, fill it with water. 3 women, 1 engaged, 1 married, and 1 a mistress, are chatting about their relationships and decide to amaze their men. That night, all 3 will wear black leather bras, stiletto heels, and a mask over their eyes. After a few days, they meet up for lunch. The engaged woman. The other night when my boyfriend came over, he found me with a black leather bodice, tall stilettos, and a mask. He saw me and said, "You are the woman of my life. I love you." Then we made love all night long. The mistress. Me too. The other night I met my lover at his office and I was wearing the leather bodice, heels, mask over my eyes, and a raincoat. When I opened the raincoat, he didn't say a word. But we had wild sex all night. The married woman. I sent the kids to stay at my mother's house for the night. When my husband came home, I was wearing the leather bodice, black stocking, stilettos, and a mask over my eyes. As soon as he came in the door and saw me, he said, "What's for dinner, Batman?" In a small southern town, a trial was underway. The prosecuting attorney called his first witness, a sweet elderly grandmother named Mrs. Jones. He approached the stand with confidence and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know me?" She smiled politely and said, "Why, yes, I do. I've known you since you were a boy, and frankly, you've been a disappointment your whole life. You lie, you cheat on your wife, you gossip behind people's backs, and you strut around like you're someone important, but truth is, you ain't got the brains or backbone to be more than a second-rate lawyer with a big ego. So yes, Mr. Williams, I know you." The courtroom went silent, trying to recover. The stunned prosecutor quickly pointed to the defense attorney. "Mrs. Jones, do you know the defense attorney?" She nodded. "Why, yes, I know Mr. Bradley, too. Known him since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He's lazy, arrogant, drinks like a fish, and can't hold down a decent relationship. His law practice is a mess, and let's not forget he cheated on his wife with 3 women. One of them was your wife." The courtroom gasped. Mr. Bradley slid lower in his seat. The judge, barely containing his laughter, leaned forward and said in a low, stern voice, "If either of you fools asks her if she knows me, I swear I'll send both your asses straight to the electric chair." A man is walking along the beach with his wife when he stubs his toe on something sticking out of the sand. He bends down, picks up an old oil lamp, and gives it a rub. Poof! A genie bursts out in a cloud of smoke. The genie booms, "Thank you for freeing me. I shall grant you 3 wishes, but be warned, whatever you wish for, your wife will receive double." The man nods eagerly. "Easy. First wish. I want the best sports car in the world." The genie snaps his fingers. Broom. A stunning car appears beside him, but next to it, 2 identical ones for his wife. She beams. "Now I've got one for weekdays and one for weekends." The man forces a smile. "Second wish," he says quickly. "I want $1 million, cash." Another snap. Bundles of money rain down into his car. He laughs in delight until he sees his wife's 2 cars bursting with cash. She smirks. "Wow, I might need a 3rd car just for shopping." The man's smile vanishes. He stares at her, his jaw twitching. Then, eyes locked on the genie, he growls. All right, genie, for my third wish, I want you to beat me half to death. A farmer stops by the local mechanic to get his truck fixed. They tell him it'll take a few hours, so he shrugs and says, "No worries, I'll just walk home. It's not far." On the way, he pops into the hardware store and buys a bucket and a gallon of paint. Then he swings by the feed store and picks up 2 chickens and a goose. Outside, he's standing there trying to figure out how to carry all this. A bucket, a paint can, 2 chickens, and a goose. It's like a farmyard version of Tetris. As he's scratching his head, a little old lady walks up and says, "Excuse me, sir, I'm lost. Can you tell me how to get to 1603 Mockingbird Lane?" The farmer smiles. "Well, you're in luck. I live right near there. I'd walk you, but as you can see, I've got my hands full." The old lady thinks for a second and says, "Why don't you put the paint can inside the bucket? Carry the bucket in one hand, tuck a chicken under each arm, and hold the goose in your other hand." "Brilliant," the farmer says, and off they go together. A few minutes in, the farmer says, "Hey, let's take a shortcut through this alley. It'll get us there quicker." The little old lady eyes him suspiciously. "Young man, I'm just a lonely widow. How do I know that once we're in that alley, you won't push me against the wall, lift up my skirt, and have your way with me?" The farmer nearly chokes. "Lady, I'm carrying a bucket, a gallon of paint, 2 chickens, and a goose. How in the world could I possibly do that?" She smiles sweetly. "Easy. Set the goose down, cover it with the bucket, put the paint on top to weigh it down, and I'll hold the chickens." As a packed airliner prepares for takeoff, a 5-year-old boy suddenly erupts into a full-blown tantrum. He's screaming, kicking the seat in front of him, flailing in the aisle, an absolute storm of chaos. His poor mother tries everything, calm words, threats, snacks, but nothing works. Passengers start sighing and shifting uncomfortably. It's clear. This flight is going to be a long one. Then, from the back of the plane, an elderly man in a crisp Air Force general's uniform rises and begins walking slowly up the aisle. He stops beside the frantic mother, raises a hand to pause her, and leans down to the child. With a calm voice and a kind smile, he gestures to the medals and insignia on his chest and whispers something into the boy's ear. In an instant, the child freezes, eyes wide. Without a word, he quietly takes his mother's hand, sits down, and buckles his seatbelt. The entire cabin breaks into spontaneous applause. As the general walks back to his seat, a flight attendant hurries over, touches his sleeve, and asks, "Excuse me, sir, but may I ask what you said to the boy?" The general gives a gentle smile and replies, "I showed him my wings and medals, and explained that I'm authorized to throw 1 passenger out of the plane per flight. And today, I was feeling decisive." A man steps out to the curb and hails a taxi just as it pulls up. As he slides into the back seat, the cabbie glances in the rearview mirror and says, "Wow, perfect timing. You're just like Frank Feldman." Passenger, "Frank who?" Cabbie, "Frank Feldman. That guy was something else. Always did everything right. Like me showing up just when you needed a cab. That kind of thing happened to Frank all the time." Passenger, "Well, nobody's perfect." Cabbie, "Frank was. He was a phenomenal athlete. Could have gone pro in tennis or golf. Sang like an opera star, danced like Fred Astaire, and played piano like a concert maestro. Brilliant mind. Too, remembered every birthday, every anniversary. Knew wine like a sommelier and could fix anything without breaking a sweat. The man was a genius." Passenger, "Wow. He sounds like he was 1 in a million. Cabbie. More like 1 in a billion. He always took the best routes, never hit traffic, knew just what to say to a woman, made them feel like royalty. Never raised his voice, dressed sharp, creased pants, polished shoes, perfect hair, just flawless. Frank never messed up, not once. Passenger. So, how did you know him? Oh, I never actually met Frank. Passenger. Wait, what? Cabbie. He died. I married his wife. A teacher asked her young class to go home and bring back a family story that had a moral. The next day, the kids were ready. First up was Joe. My dad's a farmer. One day we were taking a big basket of eggs to the market. We hit a bump, the basket fell, and all the eggs smashed. The teacher nodded. And the moral? Joe said, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket." Very good, said the teacher. Then Mary raised her hand. We had 20 eggs waiting to hatch. Only 10 became chicks. And the moral? Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Excellent, the teacher beamed. Then it was Barney's turn. Barney stood up and said, "My dad told me a story about my Aunt Karen. She was a flight engineer in the war. Her plane got shot down. She bailed out over enemy territory with nothing but a bottle of whiskey, a machine gun, and a machete." The class went silent. The teacher leaned forward. Barney continued, "She drank the whiskey on the way down to brace herself, landed right in the middle of 100 enemy soldiers. She took out 70 with the machine gun before it jammed. Then she used the machete, took down 20 more before it snapped. And the last 10? Barney paused dramatically. She killed them with her bare hands. The class gasped. The teacher, pale, whispered, What was the moral of that story?" Barney grinned. "Stay away from Aunt Karen when she's been drinking." A blonde woman walks into the local police station determined to prove she's smart enough to be a detective. The police chief, amused but skeptical, decides to give her a quick test. "All right," he says, "let's see what you've got. First question, what's 1 plus 1? She thinks for a second and proudly says, 11. The chief blinks. Well, not the answer I expected, but technically not wrong. Okay, second question. Name 2 days of the week that start with the letter T. Without hesitation, she replies, "Today and tomorrow." Now the chief's eyebrows are raised. All right, then. Last question. Who killed Abraham Lincoln? The blonde looks puzzled. She furrows her brow deep in thought, then finally says, I don't know. The chief sighs. Tell you what, why don't you go home and work on that one? We were on that one. Excited, the blonde runs straight to the beauty salon to meet her friends. They rush over. So, how'd the interview go? She grins and says, Amazing, first day on the job and I'm already working on a murder case. A cowboy rides into a dusty old town and heads straight into the saloon for a drink. But, being a stranger, the locals, always looking to stir trouble, have their eyes on him. After finishing his whiskey, the cowboy steps outside and finds his horse is gone. Without missing a beat, he storms back into the saloon, flips his gun in the air, catches it without looking, and fires a shot clean through the ceiling. The bar goes dead quiet. With a low, menacing drawl, he says, All right, which one of you sidewinders stole my horse? Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. The cowboy glares around the room and adds, I'm gonna sit down and have me another drink. And if my horse ain't back outside by the time I finish, I'm gonna do what I done in Texas." He narrows his eyes. "And I don't like what I had to do in Texas." A nervous shuffle ripples through the saloon. He calmly finishes his beer, walks outside, and lo and behold, the horse is back. He saddles up and starts to ride off. Just then the bartender rushes out, tips his hat, and calls after him. "Hey, partner. Just curious. What did you have to do in Texas?" The cowboy turns in the saddle, shrugs, and says, "Walk home." A man's been driving all night and, exhausted, decides to pull over and catch some sleep by the side of a quiet road. Not 10 minutes after he dozes off, there's a loud knock on the window. Startled, he jumps up, rolls it down, and finds a jogger bouncing in place right outside. "Hey man, sorry to wake you. Do you know what time it is?" The man groans, squints at his watch, and says, "Yeah, it's 5. "Thanks," says the jogger, and off he goes. Annoyed, the man leans back, pulls his cap down, and tries to fall asleep again. But just 30 minutes later, bang, 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 another knock. Another jogger, jogging in place. "Yo, you got the time?" The man grits his teeth, checks his watch. "It's 5:30. "Appreciate it," says the jogger, and disappears down the road. Now the guy's fuming. No way he's getting any sleep like this. So he pulls a piece of cardboard from the back seat, grabs a marker, and writes in big, bold letters, "I do not know what time it is." He sticks it to the window, smiles, and finally relaxes. An hour later, tap, tap, tap. Another knock. He rolls down the window, ready to explode. Another jogger leans in and says, "Hey, buddy. It's 6:30. At 85 years old, Roger married Jenny, a beautiful 25-year-old. Being concerned about his age, Jenny decided they should sleep in separate bedrooms after the wedding so she wouldn't overwhelm her elderly husband. That night, after the wedding celebrations, Jenny settled into bed, prepared for the inevitable knock. Sure enough, the door opened, and there was Roger, her 85-year-old groom, looking eager. With a smile, they united for their first night together. And after some time, Roger kissed her goodnight and left the room. But a few minutes later, another knock came at the door. It was Roger, again, ready for more. Surprised but amused, Jenny agreed, and once more, they were together. When he left again, Jenny settled into bed, but yet another knock, and it was Roger once more, as fresh as the first time, ready to go. After they were done, Jenny, amazed at his stamina, said, "I'm truly impressed, Roger. At your age, I've been with men a third of your age, and they couldn't keep up like this. You're truly a great lover." Roger, looking a bit sheepish, turned to her and said, "You mean I've been here before?" One sunny afternoon, two boys were playing by a quiet stream. While chasing frogs and skipping stones, one of the boys spotted a bush and wandered over to it, curiously peeking through. The second boy grew puzzled, wondering why his friend was taking so long at the bush. Finally, curiosity got the better of him, and he went over to take a look too. To their surprise, behind the bush was a woman bathing naked in the stream. The boys were wide-eyed, staring in shock and silence. Suddenly, the second boy bolted, running as fast as his legs could carry him. The first boy, confused, called out, "Hey!" Where are you going?" But got no response. Determined, he chased after his friend and eventually caught up. Gasping for breath, he asked, "Why did you run away like that?" His friend, still panicked, blurted out, "My mom told me that if I ever saw a naked lady, I'd turn to stone, and I felt something getting hard, so I ran." A traveling salesman passes a field and sees a pig with 3 legs. Intrigued, he pulls up to the farmhouse and asks the farmer, "What's up with that 3-legged pig?" The farmer gets all misty-eyed and says, "Let me tell you about that pig. A few years ago, we were all asleep when a fire broke out in the house. That pig jumped out of the pen, broke down the front door, and woke the family up. He even dragged old Nan to safety, on account of she can't walk on her own anymore." The salesman is amazed. "And he lost his leg helping in the fire?" "What? No," the farmer responds. "But a few months later, we were out feeding the cows, and a big grizzly bear charged in. That brave pig came charging out and fought off the beast until we could all get to safety." "Oh, so the bear got its leg?" No, miraculously he came out of it completely unscathed. And then, just last May, I was working under my tractor when the jack stand started to fail. And wouldn't you know it, that pig pulled me to safety right as the rig came crashing down where I had been laying. And the pig's leg got caught under the tractor? Nope, he was too fast." "Well then, how'd he lose his leg?" the salesman cried. "Son," the farmer said, "a pig that good you don't eat all at once." For their mother's 90th birthday, 3 successful sons decide to each give her an extraordinary gift. The oldest thinks she's lived in that little house all her life. Time she had something grand. So, he buys her a mansion. The second thinks she's not as mobile anymore. Let me make life easier. So, he gets her a chauffeured limousine. The third, the most creative of the bunch, knows her eyesight isn't what it used to be. So he trains a parrot to recite the Bible cover to cover. On command. Took years and a small fortune, but this bird can quote scripture like a preacher on espresso. A week later, the mother writes each of them a thank you letter. To her eldest, "My dear son, thank you for the mansion. It's beautiful, but I only use 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and the kitchen. I've donated it to a family shelter where it'll do some real good." To the second, "Thank you, my boy, for the limousine and the driver, but I don't travel much. Church is next door and my legs still work just fine. I gave it to the parish to help others get to services." And to the youngest, "My sweet son, you really know what I like. That chicken you sent was absolutely delicious." A man goes into a pub with a chicken under one arm and a biscuit tin full of holes under the other. The bartender tells him, "You can't bring that in here." The man replies, "I think you'll change your mind about that once you've seen what it can do. In fact, you'll probably want to buy her." The bar was quiet at that particular time, so the bartender humors him to see what he's talking about. He asks the bartender to put some lively music on. Then he carefully sets the biscuit tin on the counter. Then he gently places the chicken on top, and then waits. The bartender stares in utter amazement as the chicken begins hopping and dancing about all over the biscuit tin lid. A dancing chicken? Ha! People will come from far and wide to my pub to see this amazing spectacle. I must have it. What do you want for it? PS 300, and she's yours. They make the exchange, and the man leaves. The bartender shouts up the road after him, "How do I get it to stop?" The man shouts back, "Just open the tin and blow out the candle."